Hey y'all, it's Jess. Welcome to Roots and Refuge Farm and welcome to my greenhouse. One of the videos that has been repeatedly requested here on my channel is a tour of the inside of my greenhouse, especially this time of year when it is slam full of new plants. Today I'm gonna just walk you through here and just show you what all is growing. I've got a lot of different varieties, but I know you guys like that sort of thing, so I'll be sure to tell you what is what and kind of where my stuff came from. I get a lot of the same questions over and over. Being someone who vlogs daily, of course I'm out here a lot, there's a lot of footage out here, but I thought this would be a nice place to keep all of that information in one place. We are currently building a second greenhouse. Jeremiah, my husband, has been working on it down actually in our garden area. It's made out of old windows, and we're going to be revealing that here pretty soon. Hopefully, I'm really hoping it's in the next week. We were waiting on some details to come through, so, and it also really depends on what the weather does, but it's looking really good. It's been really hard to keep it hidden from all of our viewers. In the meantime, waiting on that greenhouse to be done, I have been steadily starting plants. I start them under grow lights in the house, and then now that it's getting warmer, I'm starting some from seed just right out here directly in the greenhouse. And this greenhouse is currently at capacity. All of my shelf space for the most part is completely full, and I've even got stuff on the floor. We're hoping to be able to start moving stuff into the other greenhouse here within a week. We have a video out about this greenhouse. Maya made the video. This started as a Harbor Freight kit. It has been repaired and added on to many times. I'll go ahead and link that video explaining kind of the long story of how this greenhouse was put together. We call it our Frankenstein greenhouse because it is a bit of a hodgepodge in order to be functional, but it is functional, and as you can see, it's doing its job just fine in aiding us in growing plants. It is, like pretty much everything else in my life, a little bit of a mess, and while it's tempting before coming out and doing a video like this to come in and tidy it all up and make it a pretty picture, I have vowed to you guys never to do that. I'm showing you the real deal. This is my real workspace. It's a mess, but I spend a lot of time working here. So most of what is currently in this greenhouse right now is tomatoes. That's what I started first because I'm actually going to be doing a couple of plant sales, and I wanted to be able to take tomatoes. I have a really expansive tomato seed collection, so I figured this would be something that I would be able to sell a lot of. Tomatoes are pretty forgiving, and I also know a lot about them, so I felt more comfortable selling something that I could easily answer questions on. Now I have some peppers started and some other things started, and I'm really focusing now that I have all these tomatoes started on starting all the things that I want to grow in my garden. So you'll see that some of the things that are just started as seeds, those are things that I'm growing for myself. I guess let's just start on one side and make our way over. You'll see I've got a lot of these trays with these little cups in them. I got these from the Bootstrap Farmer. I also use like plastic party cups, and I recently came across this product on Amazon and just ordered it for the first time. These are these little grow bags which you can plant directly. If these work out well, I'll probably use these more, but I've been very impressed with the Bootstrap Farmer stuff. This is actually a Bootstrap Farmer tray here. They are really intensely high quality. They have a 2-year warranty. I really liked it, and obviously this is really going to depend on what your goals are and what your budget is. I ordered all of the Bootstrap Farmer trays because I knew I was going to be doing these plant sales. I thought that would look really professional. In the past, I've pretty much used party cups exclusively, gathering them up after parties in order to kind of give them a second purpose. And they work really well also. You just have to add drainage on the bottom. So this was just a year of trying some different things for me, and all of these are very viable options. Also have these little plant markers. Some people have made comments like, wow, it's excessive that you have markers in every single cup. But again, doing plant sales, that's why I went ahead and just marked everything, because if I don't know what it is, I can't really sell it. So I just went ahead and put markers on everything. Those also got on Amazon. I really like them. All of this stuff that I'm mentioning today will be in our Amazon like affiliate store where we recommend products that we've used. And these are all things that we're getting asked about a lot. So here I've got some blue gold berries plants. That's a really good little cherry tomato. And back here in the back, Kellogg's Breakfast. That's a big orangey yellow slicer. Here, blue cream berries, which is another variation of that same cherry. And in the back, the Wapsipinicon, I'm probably saying that wrong, peach, which is like a fuzzy, peachy type of tomato. There's some golden lemon balm started. These are some flowers that Ben was helping me start. My son, you can see here, he's writing his name backwards because he's learning how to do it. Here are some tomatoes. When I was separating them out, I took some of the larger ones and put them in cups. I'll probably save those to put in my garden. Like, that's a Paul Robeson, so is that. Dr. I say witchy, I think it's supposed to be Wykes. Anyway, so those are some of my favorite tomatoes I know I'm gonna plant personally. Here are some pink ox hearts, Thessaloniki, more pink ox hearts, Lucky Tiger. I've got a little space in the back there I can put a few more plants. Aunt Ruby's German green, some spoon tomatoes. These are a really neat, tiny, tiny little cherry. And you can even see the sort of daintiness in the features of the plant. I really like those. Large barred boar back here. Here, this looks like a tray that's got some variation, some German Johnson, Wand Flame, chocolate pear. And over here, those are dark galaxies and pork chops. At one point I had started repotting into solo cups thinking that that might be better, but then I realized how many more plants I could fit in the space with these. So obviously I just got one tray of these done. These are almost all Napa Chardonnay Blush, which is a Wild Boar Farms cherry I really like. And there's a few odds and ends ones in the back. Here, White Tomasol, Berry's Crazy Cherry, Purple Bumblebee, Large Barred Boar. Down there on the end, Napa Chardonnay Rosé, Chocolate Stripes, Creole. I've been asked a few times if I have to do much rotation. And it is true that some parts of the greenhouse don't quite get the sun of the others. And the main variation is that it's warmer up higher because heat rises. And I do keep an eye on the trays, and if I notice that some of the plants are getting a little on the leggier side, I go ahead and move them up to the top where I feel like they can get more sun. Up until this point, I've had no supplemental light in this greenhouse. It's been 100% natural light. Do have a little bit of supplemental heat. This little heater back here sitting on that chair, it's just an infrared heater that we got at a local hardware store. It was probably somewhere in the range of like $40 or $50, I think. I can't really remember. We bought it actually to be able to use in the house, like in the basement where it gets a little chilly, hoping that it would offset our overall bill. Ended up sticking it out here, and it's worked great as far as adding about 10 or 15 degrees to the overall heat of the greenhouse. It does not keep it super hot, and it has been a little expensive. Our electric bill was significantly higher last month running that. It was also a cold month, so I don't know how much of that was attributed to the heater. But now that it's warming up and we're having sunny, springish days, we haven't had to run that very much except for on a cool night occasionally. I've also considered, now that I'm not using my grow lights so much in the house, since it's nice out here, I've been doing most everything out here, I've considered bringing them out and hooking them up underneath some of these shelves just to add lights for overcast days where I could put plants that I feel like might need a little bonus light that are struggling, but I just haven't done that yet. All right, on the second shelf here, I've got these Get Stuffed tomatoes, which is really neat looking stripy stuffing tomato. Thin-walled, looks a lot like a bell pepper. Lucid Gems, Big Rainbows, Abe Lincoln. Last year I went to Baker Creek Seed Expo, and one of the largest tomatoes that I saw there was an Abe Lincoln, so I decided to give that a shot this year. Limoncino, more Big Rainbow, Pineapple, and back here, this is sort of random, but I have some random little sage plants that I had started. Here in these cups are actually my eggplants. I should have started those weeks ago. I'm really behind on them, but I got so wrapped up in the tomatoes that I just failed to start the eggplants. So I didn't start a ton of them. I really just started enough for myself because I don't think the plants will be established enough. by the time the plant sales are here for me to sell any of them. However, I really enjoy eggplant. I enjoy growing eggplant, and so I want to have those, and I have a long enough growing season that it's okay. I'm getting a little bit of a late start. I may end up being pretty tempted by eggplant starts when they start popping up at the stores though. Now these little 6-cell planters, also from the Bootstrap Farmer, they're really heavy duty plastic. And what these are is whenever I had cups full of little seedlings and I was separating them into these cups, some of them were teeny tiny with no true leaves, and so I would take them and put them in one of these just to get them established, because I wasn't sure how well they would transplant. Obviously they did fine. Every single one of these survived and is thriving now. So these are just a few different types of tomatoes that I have other larger plants of, like Japanese Black Trifle, Sunrise Bumblebee, Paul Robeson, Berry's Crazy Cherry. When these get larger, I'll go ahead and pot them up to give them more space. This is an Orange Rossellini from M.I. Gardener. I recently shared a little bit about that tomato. Chocolate Marmalade, Red Zebra, more Sunrise Bumblebee. Back there on the back wall is just a couple of cool weather things. That, I believe, is like a little broccoli. Some of these were actually little experiments. I don't even know if I'm going to end up planting those because I have lots more of them outside. Dr. Witchy. Actually, this entire tray is that. This is one of my favorite tomatoes, so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of them to take to the plant sales because I do so highly recommend it. This is a Chadwick Cherry, which is a cherry tomato that came pretty highly recommended. Kellogg's Breakfast, and again the peach tomato. This is Wapsipinicon peach. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. This was one of the ones that I seriously debated whether I wanted to grow this year because I knew I was gonna have to pronounce it on camera if I grew it. YouTuber problems, I guess. Here are some peppers that have not germinated yet, but actually look at that. Happy birthday, little pepper. That's Oda Purple. That's a little neat, vibrant purple sweet pepper. And then here, just some poblanos. I don't see any action on those yet. These are peppers which have germinated. Tapepo Gallo, Spanish Mammoth, Sugar Rush Peach. These are all Nadapinos on the back. I haven't stuck labels in them yet. Habanadas, Red Mini Bell, Hascaria, Manganji Sweet. You may notice the distinct absence of super hot peppers. I don't really grow super hot peppers because I don't like them and have small children. I don't want them to eat them. And over here on the floor are even more peppers which have yet to be separated. That's on my to-do list. And these are more peppers that are just germinating. And like I said, they're down here on the floor where it's a little cool. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and bring some heat mats out and find a place for them. Maybe shuffle some things around and get them on the shelf. That's what all of these are. I recently just brought these out from the house. Here in the back are some more tomatoes, Kaleidoscope, Jewel tomatoes, and these are all strawberries which a viewer sent us runners from her plants, and I went ahead and potted them up until I could figure out where I was going to put them. So my potting bench over here, which is a hot mess of seeds and cups and markers, also doubles as where I stand to reach the top shelf. Up here I've got Paul Robeson. Did a whole tray of those as well. Another one of my absolute favorite tomatoes that I highly recommend, so I went ahead and started a lot. I obviously have a lot of varieties of tomatoes, so you may be wondering how many I actually grow. Roughly about 120 plants, which honestly is not a like crazy amount of plants. It feels like a lot, but it's really not. I have a big family. We have 6 kids. And while I eat a ton of tomatoes fresh, most of my family does not. The kids will eat the cherry tomatoes. We dehydrate those. I do about 20 cherry tomato plants. And then the rest will become salsa, spaghetti sauce. They'll get canned, frozen. And we actually do use all the tomatoes that are produced in our garden. And it's not hard to do. I actually just opened my last jar of canned tomatoes from last summer yesterday, and it's March. So obviously I actually didn't grow enough last year. But regarding the different varieties, like how many of each I plant, the like tried and true favorites, Paul Robeson, Dr. Witchy's, Amish Paste, those are some of my favorites. I know that they're my favorites to eat fresh, but also they do serve the purpose of being able to be roasted and canned. So those I will probably plant about 6 plants each of. Some of these I'll only plant 1 because I'm trying them for the first time. Some of them I like them pretty well, so I'll plant 2 or 3 for that total of 120 plants. The cherries I only plant 1 of each, even the ones that I really like. I'll typically just do 1 of each. Because they're so prolific, all of those get dehydrated and dried or eaten fresh. I don't like to have just like a whole bunch of the same kind. I like a variety on those. Okay, back to the starts. Here is Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye, Jersey Devil, Secret Sauce Short, which is a Wild Boar Farms, Vintage Wine. It looks like I did a ton of the vintage wine. I don't really know why. I guess they did well, and so I had a lot of them. This one is called Daniel's Tomato. Here's one you've definitely seen if you've been watching my vlogs. This is called Painted Lady by Wild Boar Farms. I did an entire tray of this because I was so excited about it because I had never grown a variegated leaf tomato, and this is one, and so I was really pumped. It is turning out to be just as beautiful as I'd hoped. And the fruit of that is pretty interesting looking. Hopefully it tastes good. You know, I have no idea. I've never grown it before. But I was just so excited about the foliage on it that I just went gung-ho and planted 35 of them. Here's one called Orange Limoncello, Missouri Pink Love Apple, Malachite Box. This is probably my favorite green tomato. I don't know, I like Aunt Ruby's German green too, but this one is really, really good. It had good flavor. Beauty King on the back, and one called Negrello di Almaguero. I'm sure, again, mispronouncing. Here's a Honey Drop Cherry, which is an open pollinated hybrid that has fantastically sweet flavor. In the back, Climbing Triple Crop, which is a potato leaf and has produced the 2 largest tomatoes I've ever grown to date, both of which were just shy of 2 pounds each. Here, now you can see the difference of the ones that I repotted much sooner than the others. Getting them separated into their own space, it just makes a really huge difference on how quickly they grow. Here we have one called Gardener's Sweetheart, more Chadwick cherries, Pineapple Pigs, Lithium Sunset, and Egg Yolk. Here is the other variegated leaf tomato, which I got, interestingly enough, different leaf shape. It looks like the Painted Lady has a little bit of a potato leaf shape, whereas this one has a more traditional tomato leaf. But it is also looking very beautiful. I don't have as many of those because I didn't have as many seeds to start with. This is called Cherokee Rose, which is actually bred off of a mutation from a Cherokee Purple, so it has like a matte skin. It's not shiny, and there are several of those. And then here in the back are some Black Beauties, also Wild Boar Farms. Those 2 are both Wild Boar Farms. These are dwarfs. Now I want you to look here at like this plant versus this plant. Now this plant is actually a few weeks older than these, but they're really stocky, as you can see, and they're not as big because these actually won't get as big at maturity. These will only be a couple of feet tall. So I've got Chocolate Stripes, and that's a dwarf variety of that. Mini Bell, look how little this one is. This is like a 12 to 24 inch plant at full growth. And that looks like the only 2 types in that tray. Here, more non-dwarf. Corazon, Debut, Rumi Banjan. That's a really neat tomato, the Rumi Banjan. These are bent over because my stinking cat got up here. This one's called Girl's Weird Thing, and it's really funny looking. Those are some seeds a friend of mine sent me from a swap. Brad's Black Heart, back here in the back. And over here, these are actually peppers that I had moved to the top to give them a little more heat. Paradixum, Aluku Sargocentes, Lemon Drop, Bridge to Paris, and Golden Marconi, and Criolla de Cochina. And some of these are starting to just get the very tiny beginnings of their first real leaves. Bombed growing peppers last year, so I'm really hoping I do better at it this year. Down here on the bottom, I have some dwarf plants in grow bags, and they have already grown significantly larger just in the handful of days they've been in these bags. Potting up and giving plants ample space and less competition just does wonders for their size and productivity. That one's puny because Kitten George came and laid on it. I've yet to solve the problem of needing to fully vent the greenhouse and open the doors and keeping the cats out. All right, so here I've got Arkansas Travelers, which I did several of those. They're actually not my absolute favorite tomatoes, but being an Arkansan, you know, I don't know, there's some weird Arkansas obligation to grow it. Aunt Lou's Underground Railroad, and this one has a really cool story. I mean, obviously the name pretty much tells you where it came from, but what I'd read was the guy who had been responsible for spreading this out and making it known. It was like his great Aunt Lou, which was a safe house on the Underground Railroad, and this was given to her by a former slave on his way to freedom, and that's what he had to give her was those seeds. And I just think that's a really neat story. The Isis Candy Cherry, also sometimes called just Candy Cherry, Italian Heirloom. This is one I'm looking forward to. This is a seed from Fruition Seeds, and I got them late last year, and I just wasn't able to get them to take off before it got really hot. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's supposed to be like a slicer sized tomato, but really meaty, so very good for sauce. I don't really like growing specifically sauce tomatoes. I like to grow big slicers that just don't have a lot of seeds and gel, so that they can be used for fresh eating or canning. Here on the front are actually some zinnias, Redmond Super Cactus zinnias, and then most of the rest of this tray is Craig's Grande Jalapeno. I'll be growing a lot of jalapeno plants this year, restoring my stores of canned peppers of all types. Back here are just some seeds that I've started. They haven't come up yet. Claytonia Miners lettuce and red cherry hot peppers. Here are Wild Boar Farms blueberries. That is another variation of that berry line from Wild Boar Farms. Blue Gold, Blue Cream, and Blueberries. And I believe this whole tray may be those. Yeah, it is. This whole tray is those. That's one of my top few favorite cherry tomatoes. Here we have Brad's Atomic Grape, which was made very well known by being on the cover of Baker Creek Seed Catalog last year. It's a neat one. My daughter really likes that, and so that's her special plant. I always grow those for her. And back here in the back is Black Creme, which is a really good purpley dark slicer. Here is a tray of seeds. I just sowed them day before yesterday, so they haven't started coming up yet. And these are all different kinds of basils. Blue Spice, Cardinal, Lettuce Leaf, the Caparo Holy Basil, Thai Sweet Basil, Licorice Basil, and then this is actually Shiso, which is a really good adaptogen herb if you're into using herbal medicine. These are all nasturtiums, Alaska Red on this side and Jewel Peach Melba on this side. The Alaska Red is again a variegated plant. I actually still have the seeds out here, if you see that. Really neat splashy leaves. Nasturtiums, I was told for the longest time that they don't transplant well. And so I never tried to start them inside. I always tried to direct sow them. And we have really great soil in our beds. We have this super soil compost we get here locally, and it's very rich. It makes vegetable plants just explode. It's awesome. But I've been told that nasturtiums really like poor soil. That may be the reason, but I've never had great luck with them. I've only ever had them grow very large at all a couple of times. I don't know what the factors are in play that's causing them to go poorly. I don't know if it's because of the soil. However, I went to a friend's house that farms locally, and she had just transplanted all of these beautiful healthy nasturtiums. I was like, I thought you couldn't start those early. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try them inside and we'll see, and hopefully it goes better than it has up until now, because I would really love to grow nasturtiums. They're wonderful flowers. They're edible, they're really spicy, and I've had a little bit of them in the past, but I would like to have a lot. They're also said to be a good companion plant for tomatoes. I don't know if that's because they are a great trap crop or they house beneficials. I don't know why. Sometimes companion planting information can be a little iffy. Here is a Cupid Mix Marigold. These are all seeds that are sown. All of this, nothing's coming up yet, but I just did these. More holy basil, bowling red okra back here in the back, Moulin Rouge zinnias, Gypsy sunshine marigolds, some toothache plant, some edible chrysanthemum, and in the back a pink okra, which is technically not like a true pod okra. It's an okra that actually grows pink flowers, and it does grow pods, but they're sort of smallish. I don't know, I'm wanting to put those in my perennial garden area more as an ornamental and just out of curiosity. In the past, I have started okra 4 weeks before the last frost, and I've also direct sowed it. So this year I decided to go ahead and start some. I'm also going to direct sow some, and I want to just like make a conscious effort to take note of it. Because sometimes I've done things in the past, but I didn't have a YouTube following, like asking the questions of like, what's the difference? So I didn't really pay much attention because it didn't really matter, it's just my garden. Over here in this corner, we've got some solar flare tomatoes, Japanese black trifle, that's a random little dwarf tomato right there. The Joculus, I don't know how that got there. Chestnut chocolate, some blue beauties from Wild Boar Farms, and Stump of the World, which is a neat potato leaf red variety. Now over here in the corner, I've got this big stock tank, which I put in here hoping it might help hold some heat. And I don't know that it's done that. However, I fill it up with water, and then I just use a watering can to water all of this stuff. Now I don't have to run a hose over here. We don't have water run to the greenhouse. And having the stock tank is a great way to just easily water everything without it being an ordeal. And here, these are some Hearty Oranges. And these trees I was given by Jared Gettle when we visited Baker Creek. So I've got 2 of those we need to plant, and these are actually some little apple trees. And we just haven't planted those because I wasn't 100% sure where I wanted them to be. Making decisions like that is like so hard to me, trying to decide. And partially it's because when we first moved here we planted fruit trees, and it ended up being where we wanted to keep our goats, and our goats killed them, and so I'm always so nervous to decide where they're gonna go. Down here on the end, that's a whole tray of Sun Gold. That's a stabilized open pollinated hybrid cherry tomato. One of my favorites, just fantastically sweet flavor. This is another tray of dwarfs. This is called Golden Gypsy. Back here is Tasty Wine Dwarf. And in the very back is called Tasmanian Chocolate and Arctic Rose. Again, these are at least 3 weeks older than the rest of all of these plants. And it's kind of hard to tell at this point, but if you feel them, these are very flimsy stems, and these are super strong because they're just older plants. They're just compact is why they're that size. Here are Brandywines. These actually got a little tiny bit leggy because I had to bring all of my starts inside when it got really cold. I may repot these, but I don't know yet. I haven't made that commitment in my mind. So I've got a regular Brandywine, and in the back, a true black Brandywine. This is an entire tray of flowers, Eskimo marigolds, and a Cupid mix. Here, Arctic Rose, that's a dwarf. This is a neat plant. This is a dwarf, but I think it's one that grows a little bit larger. It's not like a micro dwarf. This is called Silvery Furleaf, and look at the foliage on that. Isn't that interesting? We've got several of those, and in the back is called Tennessee Suited Dwarf, and then more chocolate stripes. Over here is Black Beauty. This is a gorgeous tomato if you've never grown this. It actually is like a true black tomato. Where the sun touches it, it is dark, 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 full of anthocyanins. And in the back, more climbing triple crops, the one that grew the big one. Here we have Black from Tula. Over here, Napa Rose, Cherry, Atomic Fusion, which is kind of like a larger version of the Atomic Grape, and a Mono Orange. More dwarfs, Joculus Dwarf, Mr. Snow, and looks like this whole tray, oh, Wild Spud Leaf. Here we have Cherokee Purple, which is like a great heirloom people are coming a lot more familiar with, and Amish Paste, and Gold Medal back in the back. Now here's another instance of where when I was separating I had some very small little sprouts, so I put them in like a 6 cell, and I've got chocolate pears and Japanese black trifle. And back here on the back side is Negreo de Almaguero, Cosmic Eclipse, Fahrenheit Blues, and it looks like all those are Fahrenheit Blues. That's a neat dark purple cherry. And this is one random little guy down here. These are called Dancing with Smurfs, and obviously they're running a little behind. I started them late, but that's another dark cherry. So that's everything that is currently growing in the greenhouse. I guess I could show you my mess of a table here. This morning's tea, cups that are extra, some soil here, random seed packets laying all over the place. Bags. Actually, while I was doing this video, I received a delivery of even more of these bags that someone purchased from our Amazon wish list, so thank you, Misty. Here's more seeds that I've already sown here. Markers, random wash pot. I have an idea for this to sow succulents all in it, you know, with all my spare time. This is a Cherokee tan pumpkin I received when I was down at Deep South Homestead's gathering last weekend. So I'm gonna harvest the seeds out of this to grow that this year. They swear by it. And an aloe vera plant that's been with me for a lot of years, and poor thing took a pretty hard hit in the freeze when my greenhouse wasn't insulated or heated. And that really is everything. So that's a lot of plants. It's a lot of tomatoes. I have a lot more flowers that I'm going to start like in the next 2 days. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm gonna start. I have a little bit more that started in the house underneath the grow lights, but I'm working on transitioning that stuff out. I may end up going ahead and starting another round of everything under the grow lights. I just haven't decided yet. It depends on what the weather does and if it looks like the other greenhouse is going to be ready to go in the next few days or not. But I love this space. I think having a greenhouse is just absolutely beautiful. It gives me something to kind of dig my hands into during this time of year where the garden's not quite ready. And I can often be found right here, sitting next to a pot of soil at this messy table. I think that answers all the questions that we get often. We do have some little twinkly lights in here. They don't add anything as far as the heat. Again, you can get those on Amazon. I think those particular ones might have come from the Home Depot. Maya got them once on a closeout, thought that I would enjoy them, and he was right. We do have this vented. There are vents in the ceiling where we can open this. However, being in Arkansas, it gets pretty warm here, and whenever it is sunny outside, even if it's only 50 degrees, it'll be over 100 degrees in here. So at that point, I usually open the doors. When it comes to hardening things off, my typical way of doing this with the greenhouse is when it's coming down to time to plant, I keep both doors open throughout the day and just allow the plants to get more used to the temperature fluctuations. Obviously at that point I'm not running a heater, and I start going and setting them out so they can experience the full sun. Hardening off is important. It is. You can totally zap all your plants by just throwing them out into the weather. However, it is more important if you have been growing those in your house where they are in artificial controlled temperature as well as light. In a greenhouse, an unheated greenhouse, you're going to have sturdier plants than what you've grown inside your house. It's just how it is. I think that answers all the questions, at least all that I can think of that we get really commonly asked. It's usually about the stuff we're using and how we're doing it. But if you think of anything else, leave it down in the comment section below. And I thank you guys for hanging out with me today. God bless you. Until next time.